As with any ARWS international race, there's a required gear you have to have.
The gear I'm using for our race in Ecuador is basically the same gear I use all the time. Pretty much. There'll probably be a couple of added things. In fact, I still need to find some gloves. I have worn out most of the gloves I have, and it's going to be pretty chilly there. So I'm a little concerned about the cold. But that aside, I've got my regular mountain bike. It's my only mountain bike. In fact, I only have two bikes. My other bike is a folding bike with 20-inch tires that I ride around my neighborhood for time in the saddle. So that's a great bike, but that's the only bike I can race in. And it's a 29er women's small roomer. So it's pretty old. I think I got it about 5 years ago. But there's been some replacements, and I love the size, and I love it. It's a full suspension, and I haven't found a replacement that's been worth it yet. Chip maintains my bike mostly, and I'm pretty thankful for that. We'll probably put new tires on it, and yeah, it's a great bike.
Definitely bringing, my PFD, my paddle, my bike helmet, a climbing helmet, climbing harness. Mountain bike is coming with me. I am using my Evoc bike bag to get there. It's a fantastic bag that I used when I went to Scotland. Keeps the bike well padded, keeps the bike safe. What I will do is I'll sneak some extra food in there because of the weight allowance, and then I've sourced a bike box on the Ecuadorian side. I'm working with a local retailer who will have a core flute, a bike box built for me to use when I get there. Let's hope it's there when I get there. I believe that it will be. This is a very reputable person who's made a lot of these boxes over the years.
I obviously use a Out There pack. So great. This MS series size is perfect for me. I'm pretty short, and it cinches down, but you can add so much stuff to it. You can clip tons of stuff on the back. That reminds me, like, what's in each pocket. I've got a global compass in here, and all these pockets are so handy, but this is necessary. This is like the only thing I feel like I cannot race without. Chapstick.
It can be expensive, and it can be a little bit daunting, but when I first started, I had a steel frame mountain bike, a 26-incher that weighed a ton and was really hard to pedal. And so just every race you just buy something new, buy something else, buy some gear, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I have everything I need.
My shoes, I've been wearing Topo athletic shoes right now. I've gone through so many different shoes. I think, I've gone from Merrells to Hokas to Ultras, and now Topos. They've got that wide toe box. They've got more support on the heel and ankle than Ultras do. They're still a low drop shoe. They're not a no drop shoe, but low drop. And I'm using the Ultra Venture 2. I have put inside my bike shoes some old soles from my Topo shoes, so they feel like that. So they feel great.
In terms of gear prep, what I begin to do, and I've been doing it now, is that I'm about 2 weeks away from departure. I set aside a part of my garage, and then during the course of my day, as I'm moving around at night when I'm home from work, I'll begin to lay the gear out piece by piece by piece, and I'll leave it all out in the open. And then I have a spreadsheet that I used from the list that the organizer gave us. I borrowed spreadsheets from my friend Jim, my friend Mark, and I begin to compare the two spreadsheets back and forth. This being my third expedition race and many adventure races for me, most of the gear that I need, I have it with me. So I don't need to go buy a whole lot of new gear. Then there's travel clothes, what you're going to wear when you're there. There's race clothes, and then there's the post-race experience that you want to have ready and present when you're done racing, right? Nothing beats that first post-race shower when you wipe off 96 hours of grime and grust and all that stuff off you. It's good to have that go on.
Speaking of gear, we did try a homemade map board for a while. That was a disaster. Just every time we raced, the whole thing would just come apart. You'd have to end up with maps flying everywhere. You'd have to gather them back up or be flying down. You'd finally get going down a nice long downhill, and the map board would go flying off, and you'd have to stop, hit the brakes, go get the map board and put it back on. So Yeah, and one other piece, since we're sort of on the topic of gear, the other thing that I've learned over the years is that you absolutely have to train with your gear. And don't ever start a race with something you haven't trained with before and that you know how it works and you know that it works. Yeah, don't try out new gear race day. I'd have to go look at my gear bin to give you the name of the map board. It's a European company. They're available from Rootstock Racing, and they just really work. We did make an alteration to our map board, which you might find interesting. And this is one of those things where my wife, my racing partner, Chrissy, makes a suggestion. I'm like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But it kind of gnaws at me, and I try it, and it turns out it's the most brilliant thing. So when I was a kid, I collected beer cans. I had these 2 steel beer cans that were unrolled, so they're flat steel. Mounted those on the map board, and now it allows us to put the maps on the map board, put a strong magnet on top, and then you can always track where you are with that magnet. You need to be a little careful. If you are used to using a compass on or around the map board, you got to get it away from the magnet or it's going to throw you off. So, yeah, that's my story of the map board.
Another thing I am definitely going to make sure I have are poles. So I'll have my hiking poles with me. They're nothing special. They're not carbon, but they're pretty light and they are short enough for me. And I have had more than one race where one teammate, decided not to bring their poles and they needed to use mine. So, and I've had races where I didn't use them at all, but I was glad I had them. And then I've had races where I was so glad I had my poles. So, definitely taking my hiking poles. My OutDry Columbia rain jacket I've had for a long time too. It's my favorite. It looks like a trash bag, but it does not feel like it. It keeps you dry. And what other gear stuff? I like my Osprey water bladder. It's got the fold over top with the sliding thing instead of messing with the Camelback type. We have Caddy filters. I think I have mine with me today. Yeah, I carry a lot of my, race stuff daily just to be used to it, but just also because you never know when you're going to need it. Our Phoenix lights, those are great lights too. We usually have a headlamp. I have another headlamp mounted to my bike helmet, and I have the Phoenix bike light on that. And they're just awesome. They use that 18650 battery, and they are, those batteries last a long time.
I think my advice for the newer racer would be is that while gear is important, the best gear that there's out there is the gear that you own. Don't get too caught up on not having the greatest thing. Adventure racing is great in the respect that there are racers that have top end gear and racers that have middle and lower level gear. And it's more what you do with it than the type of gear itself. So I think that matters. I do think a big part, though, is pay attention to weight. If you have the choice between bringing a lighter piece of gear, a heavier piece of gear, bring the lighter piece of gear if possible. And also coordinate with your teammates. If you need one team thing, like, say, a first aid kit, only have one of those go with you. Don't bring 4 first aid kits into another country. And always plan on forgetting something. There's always a piece of gear that you have to source when you get there. Happens to everybody, no matter how often you check. Things may break in transit. The big thing with adventure racing is that you have to be flexible. Things are going to go south. Gear will get lost. Something will break. You'll be turned around. You won't know what you're doing. Be prepared to work alongside that and to take care of that along the way. The gear is what brings you forward. So pay attention to that. But don't get too wrapped up in the most perfect gear at the most perfect time. Be flexible and roll with that.